They kicked me out of Christmas dinner. Until they learned I paid for everything. I was in my kitchen when the message arrived. It was from my mother-in-law, simple and cold. Please don't come to Christmas dinner this year. It'll be just family. Smiley face, my hands shook as I read it. Ethan was my husband. I had helped plan that dinner for years. I had wrapped gifts, baked pies, and once even fixed the old hall light when it kept flickering. That text felt like a slap across my face. I stood very still and looked at the oven clock until it blurred. Ethan walked in from the garage wearing his work jacket. I showed him the message. He glanced and said, "Mom probably wants a small night. Don't worry." His voice was flat. I checked the family group chat on my phone. I watched their excited messages pop up. "We're doing the big dinner. Can't wait to see everyone." I felt the air leave my lungs. They had lied. The youngest cousin sent a photo of a table plan with names all around it, except mine. I thought back to last Christmas when I had spilled red wine and Joanne had called me clumsy in front of the table. I had laughed it off then. Now the smile felt like a scar. I wanted to scream, but I only asked, "Why would she say that?" Ethan shrugged. "She's tired. It's nothing." I looked at him and felt very small. My shoulders were tight with shame and heat. I held the phone like a secret, and the house suddenly felt too loud. Hit subscribe for more true revenge stories. I had tried to keep calm, but the group chat kept filling with pictures of the menu and jokes about who would bring what. My sister-in-law had posted a photo of the crystal glasses with the caption, "A classy Christmas, no drama this year." The laughing emojis felt like a room full of doors closing. I remembered how Joanne had smiled when she watched me struggle with a fancy fork last year and said, "Some people just don't know how to behave." The words had cut me deeper than I wanted to admit. That night Ethan said, "She didn't mean it like that." I wanted him to see how it felt to be left out and humiliated. He could not. He said it again, quieter, "You're making a big deal." I walked to the living room and sat on the sofa where we had once planned our first kitchen renovation. I tried to think of reasons they might exclude me that weren't cruel, but every idea felt small. I had work the next day, so I put on my coat and drove to the office. The drive felt long. I kept replaying the image of the group chat photo, the empty space where my name should be. At noon, a cousin I barely knew sent me a private message, "Sorry you declined the invite. I was going to try to talk to you." Her words were soft like a butter knife, meant to look like an accident. I felt heat and shame rise up again. I had questions I could not yell in a family room. I wanted answers. I had a flashback to last Christmas, as clear as a photo. I had tripped with a tray of appetizers, and a glass had smashed on Joanne's antique rug. The sound had felt like a thunderclap. Everyone had gone quiet. Joanne had lifted her chin and said, loud enough for the whole room, "Some people are so clumsy. Maybe you should not host next time." People had laughed. I had smiled then, because I thought smiling was how to keep peace. I had wanted to belong. I remembered Ethan putting his hand on my back that night like he was trying to hold me upright. That memory hurt now because it showed how I had tried and failed to be one of them. At my desk that afternoon, I tried to focus on work, but my hands kept trembling. I opened my Foundation's bank app and scrolled. I had been donating quietly to causes for years. My company helped pay for local food drives and the town school's music program. I remembered setting up a corporate gift account last month and thinking, this will help more people than a single dinner. I had never told the family. They loved the charity events Joanne organized and praised her in the paper. I had watched Joanne's face in interviews, proud and smiling, taking credit for work she did not fund. A tight little rage burned in me. I decided to learn how they were using the charity's money. If they were taking praise for work I quietly funded, I wanted to know. I would be careful. I would not make a scene. Not yet. At night I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of tea gone cold. I pulled up old photos and receipts on my laptop. There were invoices for floral arrangements, invitations, and catering, all billed to a name I had set up to keep the Foundation's donors private. I had done it because I did not like the spotlight. I had liked doing good quietly. Now I saw Joanne's name on press releases and her smiling face in charity photos. She had been called generous and warm. No one knew I had quietly paid for half the events she praised. I felt a strange mix of pride and sting. I had helped pay for the yearly Christmas food baskets they handed out like trophies. I had paid for the event hall where Joanne hosted her elegant dinners. Each receipt felt like a small stone I could drop into a still pond. I tried to imagine how Joanne would react if she learned the truth. Would she be angry? Embarrassed? Would she say I was trying to buy my way in? Maybe. I thought about confronting her, but the idea of walking into that room and saying, "You lied about me," felt smaller than any answer. I wanted something that would make them feel the same sharp emptiness I felt. I wanted them to know that the table they praised was built with my money. For now I only smiled to myself and made a quiet plan. I would watch. I would gather proof. I would not let loneliness make me reckless. I worked quietly the next week, but my mind kept drifting to the photos of the table plan and the group chat. The in-laws posted their usual updates, Joanne showing off a wreath she said she had made, cousins sharing recipes, the table setting with glittering candles. I used a different name to check the charity's event list and saw the vendor names, the same caterer, the same florist I had paid for months ago. I called my assistant and asked for copies of the foundation's payments to local events. She sent them without a question. The proof lay in neat columns, amounts, dates, vendor names. Each line made my chest tighter. I started to piece it all together. They were enjoying the life everyone thought they had earned. They were comfortable with my small acts of kindness. They said I didn't belong at their table while using the comforts I had quietly given them. Ethan noticed my quiet mood. "You okay?" he asked as we ate dinner. I looked up and said, "I'm fine." I was not fine. I had felt the sting of exclusion many times, then tried to shrug it away for the kids and the holidays. Now my pain had turned into a steady heat of purpose. I would not confront them in anger. I would plan so they could not ignore the truth. I would make sure the people who cheered Joanne were watching when the curtain lifted. I began writing notes, small neat lists, like a builder drawing blueprints. The next morning, I woke up early because my phone buzzed nonstop. I thought it might be work, but it was my cousin again. She had sent another message, "I hope everything is okay. Joanne said you were too stressed for family gatherings." My mouth dropped open. Too stressed. I hadn't said a word. She was rewriting my story so she could look kind, like she had given me space. I felt sick. When Ethan walked into the kitchen rubbing his eyes, I said, "Your mom told people I refused the invite." He opened the fridge like he didn't hear me. "She didn't mean it that way. She just doesn't want drama." The word drama stung like salt. "Drama?" I asked. "I've been nothing but polite." Ethan sighed, already tired of a conversation I hadn't even started. "Can we not fight this morning?" he said. Those words felt like a door shutting. And I realized something important. If he wouldn't stand up for me now, he never would. I went upstairs, sat on the bed, and stared at my reflection. My face looked calm, but my hands were still shaking. They weren't shaking from sadness anymore. They were shaking from clarity. Joanne wanted me gone. Ethan wanted peace more than truth. His family wanted someone to laugh at. And they all thought I would take it quietly again. I folded my arms over my chest and whispered, "Not this time." I opened my laptop and pulled up more receipts, more documents, more proof. My plan had started. That afternoon, after I finished work, I checked my foundation email. There was a message from the finance team. "Transfer complete. Final funding for the in-laws' Christmas charity event has been released." I blinked at the screen. I had forgotten that last month I approved a full holiday sponsorship under the foundation's neutral name. It covered decorations, catering, rental space, and gift baskets. My in-laws had cheered when the mystery donor stepped in. Joanne had even posted a video thanking someone with real holiday spirit. My stomach twisted. All this time, I had been the silent donor holding their fancy Christmas together. And they had banned me from the very table I had unknowingly paid for. I leaned back in my chair and let out a small, bitter laugh. They had no idea I was the one keeping their event from falling apart. No idea they bragged about gifts I quietly bought. No idea their old money Christmas came from the girl they mocked as low class. I stared at the glowing email and felt something inside me settle, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. "So that's how it is," I whispered. My hands stopped shaking. My mind felt sharp and steady. I didn't need to fight them head on. I didn't need to scream or beg or prove my worth. I just needed to watch. Let them brag. Let them shine for a moment on something they didn't earn. I would gather every bit of truth they tried to hide. And when the time was right, I would reveal it all. Right now, silence was my power. For the next few days, I stayed quiet. I didn't reply to the cousin. I didn't argue with Ethan. I didn't post anything. I watched. Joanne filled her social pages with updates, gold table runners, tall candles, giant wreaths made from real pine. She wrote long captions about our family's tradition of elegance. She thanked our generous supporters as if she knew them personally. I watched her praise roll in from friends who believed every word. I kept checking each detail she posted, matching them to receipts my foundation had paid. It felt like standing behind a curtain, watching a play I had financed. But I didn't feel weak anymore. I felt ready. One night, while Ethan watched TV, I sat at the dining table and organized everything into folders, invoices, donation records, vendor receipts, emails. I even printed the photos from Joanne's posts. It felt like building a case. I didn't know exactly when I would use it, but I knew it would matter. Ethan walked by and asked, "What are you working on?" I said, "Just planning something." He nodded and didn't ask more. That told me everything. He didn't want to see the truth. He wanted quiet. But quiet was what had let them walk all over me for years. Now, quiet was the thing that would undo them. I closed the last folder and whispered, "Enjoy your dinner, Joanne. Enjoy every part of it while you still can." 2 days before Christmas, Joanne posted a video tour of her decorated dining room. Everything sparkled. Gold plates, tall candles, a snow-white table runner. She said, "Only the best for our annual dinner," and smiled like she was queen of the season. People commented things like, "Your taste is amazing," and "so classy." I paused the video as she walked past the caterer's trays. I recognized the logo. It was the same catering company my foundation's event wing had hired for the seasonal outreach program. The same bill with my company name on it. Joanne bragged about the elite choices she had made with her expert taste. I smirked. "Expert taste paid by me," I whispered. At lunch, I took a drive just to think. Snow fell lightly on the windshield. I remembered how last year Joanne had told everyone I didn't understand real holiday style. She had taken my simple homemade centerpiece and replaced it with something she said was more refined. I had laughed it off. Now I understood she wasn't just rude. She liked feeling above me. She liked being the center of attention. She liked the spotlight. Good. Because soon the spotlight would turn very bright, and she wouldn't like where it pointed. I parked outside a small cafe and breathed in cold air. I didn't feel nervous. I felt calm. Every piece was falling into place. And Joanne had no idea. That night Ethan came home from his parents' house. His cheeks were red from the cold, and he hung his coat on the chair. "Mom asked me to remind you," he said, "that you should stay home Christmas Day. She thinks it's better for everyone." He said it gently, as if he were comforting me. I stared at him, stunned by how easy it was for him to repeat her words. "Better for who?" I asked. "For the family," he said. "It's just easier." Easier. That word felt like a knife. I saw it clearly then. He didn't want to stand between me and them. He wanted peace more than truth, comfort more than fairness. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said softly. "Maybe it is better." He looked relieved. He didn't hear the edge in my voice. He didn't see the shift happening inside me. "Thank you for understanding," he said. I watched him walk into the kitchen, humming lightly. He had no idea what was coming. I went upstairs and sat on the bed, letting silence wrap around me like armor. I whispered to myself, "She'll regret this." And for the first time since Joanne's message, I felt powerful. I gathered my folders, checked every screenshot, and added one more note to the top. "Christmas Day, the reveal begins." I drove to work early the next morning and sat in my office before anyone else arrived. The quiet felt like a soft blanket around me. My assistant, Kara, came in with a stack of papers. "These are the updated records for the Christmas charity event," she said. I thanked her and flipped through the pages. Every bill, every receipt, every payment link, all funded by my foundation. My in-laws had bragged for weeks about hosting a grand event for families in need, but the truth was right there in black ink. Kara leaned closer and whispered, "They have no idea this is all you write." I shook my head. None. A slow smile spread across her face. Perfect, she said. Her word echoed exactly what I felt inside. I had power they didn't know existed. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to fight. I only needed to wait. Later that day, the event planner called to confirm final details. She thanked me for the funding and said, "Your generosity is the reason this dinner will even happen." I said nothing about the disinvite. I didn't mention the group chat. I just murmured, "I'm glad to help." When the call ended, I rested my hand on the stack of papers, feeling calm. They wanted to pretend I didn't belong. Fine. I would stay in the shadows a little longer. They would never see the truth coming until it stood right in front of them. The silent partner everyone ignored. The one who held all the strings. The day after, Joanne appeared on local TV again. She stood in front of a table filled with wrapped gifts, smiling like the camera was her best friend. "We are so proud to host our annual Christmas charity dinner," she said. "Our family has always believed in giving back." I sat on my couch watching, my arms crossed. She was dressed in red silk with pearls shining at her neck. Her voice was smooth, practiced. She talked about sacrifice and hard work as if she had done all the planning herself. Then she looked into the camera and said, "Thanks to the support of loyal donors, we can help so many families." Not once did she mention the foundation name. Not once did she ask to learn who the donor was. She simply took the credit, again. I grabbed my phone and pressed record. Not because I needed it, but because I knew this clip would matter later. I pictured the moment I would play it back in front of her. I imagined the shock in her eyes. That thought made my chest warm. I spent the rest of the afternoon searching her speeches online. She had done this before, taking praise, soaking in applause, giving nothing in return. I saved everything. Every video. Every article. Every quote about her generosity. I felt no anger now. Only focus. The kind of focus you get when you are building the ending yourself. And Christmas was getting closer. That evening, I got a message request on my phone. It was from Lucia, the maid who worked for Joanne. She wrote, "Mrs. Maya, I'm sorry to bother you. But you should know, your name comes up a lot lately." My heart thumped once hard. I asked what she meant. Lucia replied, "Mrs. Joanne keeps saying you want attention for no reason. She says you're trying to make the family look bad. It isn't true, I know. But she talks about you every day." I stared at her words. Joanne hadn't only pushed me out, she was smearing me behind closed doors. I responded carefully, "Thank you for telling me. Only share what you're comfortable sharing." Lucia replied fast, "No. I want you to know. I hear everything. I can help." Her message gave me something I didn't have before, a view inside the lion's den. I told her, "Don't put yourself at risk. I will take care of you later." She sent a small heart emoji. After that, she began sending photos when Joanne wasn't looking. The fancy place cards with my name missing. The dinner menu. The wine bottles Joanne claimed to have chosen with great care. I felt a slow fire burn inside me, not rage, but something sharper. Joanne thought she controlled the story. She thought she could shape the world around her with fake smiles and quiet whispers. She didn't know someone was quietly watching her lies stack up like shaky towers. And I would be the one to topple them. 2 days later, Lucia sent another photo, a menu labeled Old Money Elegance Dinner. My jaw dropped. That was the exact theme the event planner had pitched to my foundation months ago. The gold-rimmed plates. Paid by me. The centerpiece flowers. Paid by me. The custom folded napkins. Also paid by me. I held the phone and whispered, "Enjoy it. Every piece of it." Joanne posted a long caption online that afternoon. She wrote about how proud she was to honor timeless class. She listed all the decorations she claimed she had handpicked. She even added, "Only true taste can make a holiday special." True taste. I wanted to laugh. I leaned back in my chair and looked around my office. I remembered growing up without much, saving every dollar, building my foundation from nothing. I worked hard for everything I had. Joanne, on the other hand, wanted to look wealthy more than she wanted to be kind. That was why she mocked me. That was why she pushed me out. And that was exactly why her downfall would hurt. I clicked through the invoices again and placed them in labeled folders. When I was done, I whispered, "You wanted an elegant dinner. You'll get one. And a lesson to go with it. My plan wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was slow, steady, and sharp. Silent power. The kind she never saw in me because she never bothered to look. That night, Ethan and I sat on the sofa with the TV on. He seemed nervous, tapping his fingers on his knee. Listen, he finally said, I know Mom pushes sometimes. But she loves you in her way. I turned toward him slowly. Does she? He looked down. She just wants things to be, you know, proper. Proper. Another word for her way. I tried one more time to reach him. Ethan, she lied about me. She told people I refused the dinner. He froze. Mom would never lie on purpose. I let out a quiet breath. She did. He swallowed hard. Well, even if she did, maybe she felt embarrassed. Maybe you made her feel judged. His words cut deep. In that moment, I saw the truth. Ethan wasn't neutral. He was scared of standing up to them. Scared of being the odd one out. I nodded. Okay. Okay, he asked, confused. Yes, I said. If you can't stand up for me, I'll stand up for myself. He blinked like he didn't understand. But I understood perfectly. I stood, picked up my folders, and walked to my office. I felt lighter. Stronger. The last piece of sadness fell away. I whispered, time to finish this. Christmas was only days away, and I was no longer the girl begging to be included. I was the woman building the storm. The next morning, while I drank my coffee, I saw Joanne's newest post. She was announcing her exclusive charity dinner that would take place right after Christmas. She wrote, only our most trusted friends and respected families will be invited. Her smile in the photo looked like she had swallowed the whole world. I scrolled down and saw the guest list she hinted at, mayors, business owners, and high society couples who love being seen at events. I checked the event sponsor name. It was my foundation, hidden behind the short corporate title I used for legal work. They had no idea the entire fancy dinner, food, decor, staff, chairs, lighting, was funded by me. Without me, there would be no event at all. A plan clicked into place inside me like a puzzle locking shut. This dinner would not just be my revenge. It would be my stage. Later in the afternoon, Kara came into my office, whispering like she was part of a secret mission. They think the donor is some old businessman, she said. They've been bragging at the club. I smirked. Let them brag. By evening, the local paper posted a short article about Joanne's upcoming elite charity dinner. She had given another quote about generosity and high standards. I saved the link in the photo. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was public. I realized something then. I didn't even need to argue with them. All I needed to do was walk into the right room at the right moment, and everything would collapse by itself. That night, I joined Ethan in the living room. He sat on the sofa looking tired, scrolling through emails from his struggling startup. I watched him a moment and asked softly, "Did you ever tell your family who funded your company's first year?" He looked up, surprised. No. Why? Just curious, I said. He shrugged. It didn't matter. They would have said I should have done it alone. I nodded, but inside me something hardened. For the last year I had paid for half his startup bills to help him chase his dream. His family bragged about being successful, but not one of them had helped Ethan, not once. They didn't even know the truth, and they thought I lived off them. The irony tasted sharp. Later, I heard whispers coming from Ethan's phone. His mother had texted him, "Hope Maya doesn't embarrass us again. You need to keep her calm." Embarrass them. I wasn't the one lying. I wasn't the one stealing credit. I wasn't the one banning people from family events. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, thinking. These people judged me as if they were the ones building everything. But the truth was the opposite. They had built nothing. I had been the quiet support behind more than they would ever admit. Soon, they would see. Not in anger. Not in a fight. Just in a moment of truth they wouldn't be able to run from. Sometimes revenge didn't need shouting. Sometimes it just needed light. The next morning, Lucia sent me a photo that nearly made me laugh out loud. It was an invoice from the catering company, one of the big ones her family liked to brag about. The top of the paper showed my company name in clear, bold letters. Mrs. Joanne says she chose the best food in town, Lucia wrote. I covered my mouth to stop from laughing. There it was. The proof that every bite they would eat on Christmas Day came from my money. I saved the photo and added it to the growing stack of evidence. My plan didn't need yelling or threats. It only needed timing. Later that afternoon, I printed each proof and placed them in a neat binder. The catering invoice, the decoration receipts, the event hall booking, the gift basket payments, the TV clips of Joanne taking credit. I could see everything coming together like a slow-moving snowstorm. When I closed the binder, I whispered, almost time. That evening Ethan told me his parents were talking about how stressful I was. I didn't answer. I simply smiled and said, I hope they enjoy their dinner. He looked confused, but I didn't explain. He wouldn't understand yet. But he would. Soon, everyone would. 2 days before Christmas, I sat at my desk and opened a blank email. I typed each word carefully, asked Joanne who was funding her charity dinner. Then I attached screenshots of the invoices, the event planner's messages, and the video clip of her praising donors she didn't know. But I didn't sign my name. I sent it anonymously to a local journalist known for exposing false charity leaders and fake community heroes. Within an hour, she replied, this is worth looking into. A spark lit inside my chest. I didn't want to destroy Joanne completely, only reveal the truth. Let the world see what was behind her shiny smiles. Later in the evening, the journalist sent one more message. I may attend the dinner. Keep an eye out. Perfect. I shut my laptop and stared at the Christmas lights blinking outside my window. They looked soft, warm, gentle. The opposite of how this holiday felt. Still, I breathed in deeply. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I felt ready. Everything was in place. The public. The press. The proof. Now all that was left was the moment. And I would walk into it with my head high. Christmas morning, I woke up to quiet snow falling outside. I didn't dress up. I didn't fix my hair. I simply made myself a slow breakfast, the kind no one could ruin. Around noon, I got a notification. Joanne had posted a new photo, the family standing in front of a decorated tree, smiling wide. My empty chair was in the background. Someone had moved it away from the table. They didn't even try to hide it. I scrolled through the comments. So beautiful. What a perfect family. Your dinner always looks amazing. I only smiled. Tonight, I would walk into the charity dinner as quietly as snow. Not as a guest. Not as family. But as the woman they depended on without knowing. The woman whose money held their world together. The woman they disrespected, mocked, and pushed out. I packed my binder, my phone, and a little courage. Then I whispered to myself, tonight, everything changes. My heartbeat was steady. My steps felt light. The stage was set. And the curtain would rise soon. Christmas Eve came quietly. The streets outside were covered in soft snow, glowing under the streetlights. I lit a few candles in the living room and sat alone on the couch. The house felt still, like it was holding its breath with me. I poured myself a small glass of apple cider and raised it toward the window. To being underestimated, I whispered. The words felt warm in my chest. All day, my phone had stayed silent. Ethan was at his parents' house. I didn't ask what time he'd be back. I didn't care. I wrapped myself in a blanket and watched the snow drift down, each flake landing softly, quietly, just like my plans. Around 9, Ethan came home. He looked cheerful, carrying leftover desserts in a plastic container. Mom sent these for you, he said. I nodded but didn't open it. He told me how nice the family dinner was, how peaceful it felt. I listened without speaking. When he finished, he asked, "Are you sure you're okay?" I smiled. Never been better. He didn't understand my smile, but that didn't matter. When he went upstairs, I sat back down and looked at the binder on the coffee table. Every piece of evidence waited inside, quiet, patient, ready. Tonight wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the calm before the storm. Tomorrow would begin the final act. For now, I only breathed in and out, letting the stillness settle around me like a shield. And in the quiet, I felt stronger than ever. Christmas Day came with bright sunlight bouncing off the snow. Ethan left early to help set up. I watched from the window as his car pulled away. Then I turned back to the binder sitting on the dining table. Today was their big Christmas dinner, the one I was banned from. Around 5 in the afternoon, while the sun dipped low, I checked Joanne's social media. A new video had gone up. She stood in her fancy dining room with the whole family behind her. Everyone held glasses of champagne. To family unity, Joanne cheered. Ethan's sister added, only the people who truly belong at the table. My empty chair was visible again, pushed far away from everyone else. Then Joanne laughed. Some people don't understand what real family means. The room cheered. The words hit like winter wind, cold and sharp, but the pain didn't last. It turned into something steady and strong. A comment below the video said, "Your dinners are always perfect." Another wrote, "You have the best taste." I closed the app and smiled. They were celebrating on money they didn't know came from me. They were bragging about decorations I paid for. They were praising a table I set. And soon, everyone would know. I put on a soft coat, slipped the binder into my bag, and took a deep breath. "Enjoy your meal," I whispered. "Your real feast is coming next." I stepped outside, letting the cold air wash over me, and walked toward the moment they could never hide from. The charity event hall glowed with warm lights as I stepped inside. People in elegant clothes filled the room, holding champagne glasses and greeting each other with loud voices. I slipped in quietly, blending into the small crowd near the doorway. Joanne stood at the front, dressed in deep green velvet, smiling like she had been born under a spotlight. Ethan stood beside her, stiff and uncomfortable. I stayed in the shadows, watching. A hostess tapped a microphone. "Everyone, please gather for a toast from our event host, Joanne Walters." Joanne stepped forward, lifted her glass, and began her speech. "Thank you all for joining us tonight. This dinner was made possible by a mysterious donor with great generosity." I looked up at the curtain behind her. The projector screen was covered but ready. Joanne continued, "We hope this donor knows how grateful we are. It takes real class to give so much." People clapped loudly. I could feel the moment building like a drumbeat in my chest. "Real class," she repeated proudly. I almost laughed. Then I saw the journalist slip into the room, notebook in hand. She looked at me and nodded once. My heart settled into a calm rhythm. I took one step forward, then another, and just as Joanne raised her glass again, I spoke clearly, "I'm glad you enjoyed the money I donated." The room froze. The journalist raised her pen. Joanne's glass shook in her hand. And just like that, the beginning of their downfall lit up. A gasp swept through the crowd, soft at first and then louder, like a wave hitting shore. Joanne turned slowly, her eyes wide, her lips parted. "Maya," she whispered, like she was seeing a ghost. I stepped fully into the light. I came to see how my donation was being used. Cameras turned toward me. The journalist raised her phone. The mayor squinted from across the room, confused. Someone near the front whispered, "She was banned from Christmas dinner." Another added, "But she funded all this." Joanne tried to smile, but her face twitched. "There must be a misunderstanding." I opened my binder. "No misunderstanding. You asked the vendors. You accepted the money. You thanked the mystery donor on TV. And that donor was me." I clicked a button on the projector remote. The curtain dropped. The screen lit up with the first invoice, my company name printed clearly across the top. Gasps again. Joanne stepped back like she'd been pushed. You're twisting this." I looked at her calmly. "Am I?" Another slide showed the floral arrangement bill. Another showed the catering payment. Another displayed her TV clip claiming credit. The room buzzed with whispers. The journalist wrote quickly. Ethan stared at the screen, pale. I spoke softly but firmly. "You banned me from your table while you enjoyed the food I paid for, the decorations I bought, the event I funded." Joanne's voice cracked. "This is not the place." "Yes," I said. "It is exactly the place." And the cameras flashed like fireworks. The room erupted. Not with shouting, but with something worse. Whispers. Sharp breaths. People turning away from Joanne like her perfume had suddenly gone sour. The journalist stepped closer to me. "So you're the real donor?" I looked straight at her. "Yes. And they didn't even invite me to the dinner I paid for." She lifted her phone and hit record. "Say that again, please." I did. Slowly. Clearly. The crowd murmured louder. The mayor cleared his throat and pulled his wife aside. We had no idea, he said, loud enough for others to hear. Joanne tried one last time to regain control. Everyone, please, this is a misunderstanding. Maya is confused. I said. I tapped my phone. The transfers lit up the screen, payments directly from my foundation. Then I clicked to the next slide, a screenshot of her family group chat, the one Lucia had sent me, where they joked about having a classy Christmas without drama. Louder whispers. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Is this real?" I nodded. It's all real. And all of this, I gestured around the room, was paid for by the person Joanne pushed away. Joanne's face drained of color. Stop this. But the room was no longer hers. The journalist lowered her phone, eyes full of fire. This story, she said quietly, is going to explode. I turned to leave, but not before saying the final line that broke the last piece of Joanne's pride. You didn't just ban me from Christmas, Joanne. You banned the woman who built it. And I walked out as the room fell into chaos. The moment I stepped outside, cold air rushed over me, but inside the hall, heat spread like wildfire. People hurried toward the exits, whispering loudly. I could still hear their voices following me. She funded everything. Why would Joanne lie? This is going to get messy. Cameras flashed through the glass windows as the journalist took more photos of the event signs. A young man rushed past me, talking on the phone. Cancel my donation. I'm not supporting liars. My hands shook, not from fear, but from relief. For the first time in a long time, people actually saw the truth. Inside, someone shouted, "Turn off the projector." Another voice said, "Too late. The photos are everywhere." I waited by the sidewalk, watching the doors open and close like waves. Then the journalist came out and said softly, "Thank you. This story will help a lot of people understand what real charity looks like." I nodded. Just tell the truth. She smiled. I will. My phone buzzed again and again. Screenshots, messages, tags. The story was already spreading online. Woman banned from Christmas secretly funded her in-laws' event. Local, charity queen exposed. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel anger. I felt free. The people who had made me small were shrinking themselves now, without me lifting another finger. And for the first time that night, I realized something important. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice. I had barely walked halfway down the street when Ethan's brother stormed out of the hall, red-faced and angry. He pointed at me and shouted, "You're lying. You're trying to ruin our family." I didn't even slow down. Instead, I held up my phone and tapped the screen. The photo of the transfers glowed bright, rows of payments from my foundation, dated months before the event. "Does this look like a lie?" I asked calmly. He froze. People nearby stopped to watch. His voice cracked. You must have faked it." I shook my head. "Then go ahead. Ask the vendors. Ask the bank. Ask anyone." Silence spread across the steps. Someone whispered, "She has proof." I walked back toward the hall entrance, showing the invoices on my screen. The big projector inside reflected the same documents. No one spoke now. Even Ethan's brother lowered his eyes. Behind him, the mayor walked out, clearly embarrassed. "Ms. Rivera," he said gently, "thank you for your generosity. I'm sorry you weren't treated with proper respect." His apology wasn't for Joanne. It was for me. Joanne's friends followed him, whispering things like she should step down, and this is horrible. I could almost feel Joanne's world collapsing piece by piece. Inside the hall, workers began taking down decorations early, something that never happened at her events. The truth was spreading like fire through dry grass. And this was only the beginning. Inside the hall, the projector kept flashing every invoice on repeat. People were recording it from different angles, their phones raised like little glowing witnesses. I stood near the entrance, just watching the panic unfold. Joanne stumbled out of a cluster of guests, her face white as snow. She looked at me like I had ruined her life. "Why would you do this?" she whispered harshly. "I didn't lie," I said. "I didn't ban anyone. I didn't pretend to be something I'm not." She opened her mouth but nothing came out. Behind her, guests began leaving quickly, some shaking their heads. Someone muttered, "This is embarrassing." Another said, "She fooled us all." The mayor spoke with event staff, then walked away without even saying goodbye to Joanne. That told me everything. A group of reporters stood outside the doors now, waiting. Flashing lights burst through the windows. They weren't there for Joanne anymore. They were there for the truth. Joanne's voice trembled. "You made me look foolish." I held her gaze. "You did that on your own." Lucia, the maid, came out of the hallway holding her coat, her eyes wide. She gave me a tiny nod, the kind that said, "It's about time someone stopped her." For years Joanne had lived in a world built on lies and make-believe respect. Now her tower of glitter was falling apart, layer by layer. And everyone was watching. When I finally stepped outside, cool night air washed over me. I felt lighter than I had in months. A small crowd still lingered around the entrance, talking in low voices. I didn't rush past them. I didn't hide. I walked calmly, one slow step at a time. A few guests approached me as I passed. One older woman said softly, "I'm sorry for what they did to you." Another whispered, "You handled that with grace." But the moment that changed everything was when Lucia hurried out of the doors and ran toward me. "Mrs. Maya," she called. I turned, and she hugged me tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "No one ever stands up to her." I pulled back and smiled. "Thank you for your courage." I pressed an envelope into her hand. Inside was a formal job offer, event coordinator for my foundation, with triple her current pay. She gasped. "Is this real?" "Completely real," I said. "You deserve better." Her eyes filled with tears. Behind us, reporters began snapping photos of the nearly empty hall. Someone said, "Nobody wants to be seen supporting Joanne now." The sound of it felt like closure. I walked to my car slowly, aware that the cameras might still be watching. But I didn't look back. Tonight wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about walking away with my head high while their lies fell behind me like broken ornaments. As I opened my door, I whispered, "Goodbye, Joanne's world." And I drove into the calm night. By the next morning, everything had exploded online. I woke to hundreds of notifications. People had shared the story everywhere. Headlines filled my screen: "Woman banned from Christmas funds in-law's entire event." "Charity leader exposed for taking credit she didn't earn." "Hidden donor steps forward after being disinvited." The videos from last night had gone viral. My voice saying, "You banned the woman who built it," was being quoted under every clip. I sat on the edge of my bed, stunned, watching it all unfold. Comments poured in from strangers. "She's a queen. She handled this with class. That family should be ashamed." Ethan came downstairs slowly, holding his phone like it was heavy. His eyes looked tired. "Maya, everything is everywhere," he whispered. "I know," I said calmly. He ran a hand through his hair. "Mom is losing her mind. People are calling her selfish, fake, everything." I looked at him, really looked. "What did you expect?" He sat down beside me. "I should have defended you." I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and saw a message from the charity board. "We want you to take Joanne's place as chairwoman." My chest tightened with something strong and warm, pride. Ethan whispered, "Everything is changing." I nodded. "Yes, and it's about time." But the real reckoning, the emotional one, was still coming. And that would be even bigger. Ethan sat across from me at the dining table, his fingers shaking as he held his coffee mug. The silence stretched long between us. "Finally," he said, "I should have defended you. I should have listened." His voice cracked at the end. I watched him closely. For years, I had wanted him to stand up for me. Now the world had forced him to see the truth. "Why didn't you?" I asked softly. He swallowed hard. "I didn't want to cause trouble with my family. I thought if I kept the peace, things would get better." I nodded slowly. "But they didn't. They got worse." He nodded, ashamed. "You're right." I took a deep breath. "Ethan, this isn't just about your mother. It's about you choosing silence over me." He closed his eyes. "I know. And I'm done doing that." I leaned back in my chair. "So what do you want now?" He looked up, and for the first time in months, His voice held truth instead of excuses. I want to stand with you. Not them. You've shown more strength and honesty than anyone in that family. His words softened something in me. Not fully, but enough to breathe easier. There's still a lot to fix, I told him. I'll follow your lead, he said. For once, he wasn't asking me to shrink myself to fit their comfort. He was asking how to grow beside me. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. 2 days later, I walked into the charity boardroom for an emergency meeting. The long table was filled with people who once praised Joanne. Now they looked nervous, embarrassed, or relieved, depending on the person. The chairwoman cleared her throat. Maya, thank you for coming. We've reviewed the footage, the documents, and the public response. Another board member added, we were unaware that Joanne took credit for your donations. I nodded. Most people were. The room went quiet. Then the chairwoman said, we'd like you to step in as the new head of the charity. Effective immediately. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I looked around the room, faces waiting, hopeful. I finally said, if I take this role, I want real transparency. Real community work. No fake speeches or showy events. We're going to focus on families, not photos. They nodded eagerly. And, I added, I'm bringing in someone new as event manager. I sent a quick text. The door opened a moment later, and Lucia stepped inside wearing her simple coat, eyes wide with surprise. Maya, she whispered. I smiled. Everyone, this is Lucia. She'll be joining us, officially. The board members welcomed her warmly. Lucia covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. After the meeting ended, she hugged me tightly. I don't know how to thank you. You already did, I said. You told the truth. For the first time during this whole storm, I felt something bright break through the clouds. A new beginning. And this time, the foundation belonged to someone who valued honesty, not vanity. The next morning, as I was reviewing the charity's upcoming projects, my receptionist buzzed through. Maya, your mother-in-law is here. I froze. Then I said, send her in. Joanne walked into my office slowly, wearing a coat far too thin for the weather. Her eyes were red, her posture slumped. It was the weakest I had ever seen her. Maya, she said, voice shaky, I wanted to talk. I nodded for her to sit, but I stayed standing. She clasped her hands tightly. Everything has fallen apart. My friends won't return my calls. People think I lied. I just wanted things to look nice. I didn't mean for it to go this far. 4 years, I said calmly, you made me feel small. You shut me out of rooms I helped pay for. You talked about me behind my back. And then you lied about who made your events possible. She looked down at her lap. I didn't know you were the donor, she whispered. That's the problem, I replied. You never asked. She looked up with tears gathering. Can we fix this? I shook my head slowly. This isn't a misunderstanding, Joanne. This is a pattern. And I won't let you drag me back into it. She swallowed, her throat tight. I just needed you to know, she whispered, that I'm sorry. I nodded. I hear you. But I'm moving forward without you. She stood, wiped her eyes, and walked out. Her apology floated behind her, light, too late, and unable to carry the weight of her actions. A full year passed, and winter returned with fresh snow. But everything in my life looked different now. Ethan and I worked through our pain slowly, piece by piece. He cut ties with the parts of his family that refused to change. He went to therapy. He apologized, not once, but over and over in actions, not words. And I grew stronger. On the night of the new charity gala, the first one under my leadership, I stood behind the stage curtain wearing a simple but elegant dress. The event hall glowed with warm lights, filled with real supporters, real volunteers, and families who had been helped through programs we expanded. Lucia stood beside me, holding a clipboard and smiling proudly. You ready? She asked. I nodded, feeling steady. When I stepped onto the stage, applause rippled through the room. Not loud and fake like Joanne's crowds. Warm. Honest. True. I greeted everyone and thanked them for coming. Then I began speaking from the heart. Last year, I learned a hard lesson. People can sit at your table and still not see you. But kindness grows in places where truth is valued. Tonight is about real giving, not fame or fancy pictures. The room nodded along with me. Ethan stood in the back, watching with soft eyes full of pride. I ended my speech with one quiet promise: we'll build something real here. Something no one can take credit for unless they earn it. The applause that followed warmed me from the inside out. This was the fresh start I had needed all along. After the ceremony, guests lined up to thank us. Families shared stories about how the foundation helped them stay warm, fed, or safe. Volunteers hugged me. Donors shook my hand. Then the crowd quieted as I walked back on stage for one final message. I looked out at all the faces, some new, some familiar, and felt a calm pride settle in my chest. I began, last year, something painful happened to me. I was told I didn't belong at a family table. I was told I wasn't enough. But standing here tonight, I learned something true. The room leaned forward, listening. Family isn't who invites you to dinner. Family is who stands beside you when no one else will. Lucia sniffled behind me. Ethan wiped his eyes. I continued, we all deserve a place where we're seen, where we're valued. And if someone tries to shut you out, build your own table. Make room for people who lift you up. The applause that followed rose like a wave. It wasn't just polite. It wasn't forced. It was real. After I stepped off stage, Ethan met me with open arms. I'm proud of you, he whispered. I nodded and leaned into him gently. We made it, I said. Everything felt whole again, not perfect, but honest. And that was better than anything Joanne had ever offered. The days after the gala were a blur of messages, invitations, interviews, and thank you notes. News sites wrote articles with headlines like, "The Quiet Donor Who Transformed a Community," and "From Betrayed Wife to Local Hero." I didn't chase the attention, but it came anyway. And for once, it didn't feel heavy. The foundation's page flooded with new supporters. Volunteers signed up in groups. Families shared their stories with pride. And slowly, the old story, Joanne's story, faded from people's minds. One morning, a reporter asked, "How did it feel to have your in-laws treat you that way?" I answered honestly, "It hurt, but sometimes hurt pushes you toward the truth." The article went viral. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. I received letters from people saying, "Thank you for showing me I don't have to accept disrespect, and you inspired me to stand up for myself." I read each one slowly, feeling the warmth in every word. But the headline that touched me most came from a small local blog. She didn't lose a family, she found herself. That one made me pause. Because it was true. I had spent so long trying to fit into a place that didn't want me. Now I was shaping a world that welcomed others, lifted them, honored them. Ethan watched the transformation with quiet pride. He brought me coffee each morning, kissed my forehead, and said, "You're changing lives." And even though the pain of last year still lived somewhere deep inside me, something brighter had grown in its place: affirmation, purpose, and the kind of peace no one could take away. Ethan and I took a walk through the snowy park one evening. The lights hung from the trees, soft and golden. We walked slowly, our breaths turning into little clouds in the air. He finally said, "Mom asked me to come over." "Just me." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" "I told her no," he said. "I told her I won't visit a house where my wife is unwelcome." I stopped walking. The old ache in my chest softened. "I'm sorry it took me so long," he added. I took his gloved hand in mine. "You chose, Ethan. That matters." He nodded. "I want our life to be ours, not controlled by them." We sat on a bench coated with fresh snow. He continued, "I've been thinking, maybe we should move. Start fresh. Somewhere the past can't reach us." The idea didn't scare me. It felt warm, exciting. "For the first time," I said, "that actually sounds right." He smiled, gentle and relieved. "I'll follow your lead. You've earned that." A year earlier, he couldn't even stand between me and his mother's sharp tongue. Now he was choosing a new life with me, even if it meant leaving the comfort of the only place he had ever known. People sometimes imagined revenge as sharp, loud, or cruel. But this quiet choosing of peace, of respect, of partnership, felt like the sweetest form of justice. And I accepted it. Joanne's downfall didn't come all at once. It came quietly, like melting ice that finally gives way. Her friends stopped inviting her to lunches. She stepped down from every club she once ruled. Invitations to big parties dried up. People stopped asking her for speeches. She wasn't hated, just ignored. And I think that hurt her more. Ethan told me she spent long days alone now, baking or rearranging her living room furniture out of boredom. She posted less on social media. The sparkle she once chased so desperately had gone dim. Part of me felt sorry for her. Not enough to forget what she did, but enough to understand that losing power can make people softer. One afternoon, Ethan received a voicemail from her. She said, "I hope you and Maya are doing well. Tell her, thank you for helping the charity continue." That was it. Not a full apology. Not an attempt to rebuild. Just a small admission wrapped in quiet surrender. And honestly, that was enough. Because I didn't need her to fall flat or beg for forgiveness. Her downfall was never the goal. The truth was. And the truth had already done everything it needed to. I had moved far beyond her reach. Her world had shrunk. Mine had grown. That was closure in its cleanest form. The next Christmas felt like stepping into a warm room after a year in the cold. I hosted dinner in my new home, small, beautiful, full of gentle lights. Lucia arrived early, carrying homemade cookies. Ethan helped her hang ornaments on our fresh green tree. Laughter moved through the house like music. Friends from the foundation brought dishes to share. Kids ran through the hallway wearing matching socks. People filled the rooms with warmth I had never felt at Joanne's dinners. Everything smelled like cinnamon and roasted chicken. There was no tension. No forced smiles. No feeling like I had to prove myself to anyone. When we finally sat down to eat, the table was long and full, but not crowded with ego. Only hearts. Someone raised a glass and said, "To our found family." Everyone repeated it softly. I looked around the table and felt my chest tighten in the best way. This was real. This was mine. Not bought. Not begged for. Not fought for. Created. Built from truth. Built from scars healed with kindness. Later that night, when everyone had gone home, Ethan and I stood by the window watching snow fall gently across the yard. He whispered, "This feels like home." And for the first time in years, I nodded without hesitation. "Yes," I said. "It finally does." Snowflakes drifted past the window the next morning, glowing in the early sun. I sipped my warm tea, wrapped in a blanket, and looked around my new living room, a place built with honesty, respect, and quiet strength. My heart felt steady, full. I thought about the journey from last year's humiliation to this year's peace. How I had cried in silence, how I had stepped into truth, how I had stood my ground, and how I finally built something no one could take from me. I walked to the dining table and ran my fingertips lightly across the smooth wood. Last year's empty chair had been a symbol of exclusion. This year's long table was a symbol of choice. My choice. My creation. My family. Chosen, not forced. I opened the window a little, letting cool air fill the room, and whispered the words that had been waiting inside me for months. They kicked me out of their Christmas table. I smiled softly as sunlight filled the room. So I built my own, and now everyone wants a seat at it. The end. If you love this story and want more deep, true revenge tales filled with twists, hit subscribe and never miss the next one. Thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts in the comments.